lights go dim, it's time to find out what's within. Behind the camera, there's so much more. With Andy Games, let's explore. Behind the camera with Andy Games, meet the streamers, learn their names. Off the screen, who are they? Tune in now, don't delay.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 46 of Behind the Camera with Andy Games, the podcast where we sit down with creative people from all across the world and let them share their journeys in their own words. It's a chance to get to know not just their art, but the stories that made them who they are. Today, our guest is Jody Maberry. Jody describes himself as a former park ranger who became the happiest podcaster on earth. We discuss everything from Jody's time as a park ranger and early days in podcasting to connecting with former Disney World executive Lee Cockerell and how that changed everything for him. If you're new here, be sure to follow the show, leave a comment, a review, or share it with someone who'd simply appreciate these stories. All of that really helps us grow. Now, here's the interview. Jody, welcome to Behind the Camera with Andy Games. It is an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
Oh, Andy, I'm doing great. I'm so thrilled that you've asked me to be here. It's a bit of a struggle only because I live in the Pacific Northwest and we don't always get sunshine in June, and it's a sunny day. So I've got to sit here and look at you feeling the sun come through the window, knowing I should be out there.
Do you know, it's actually funny you say that. We actually have just had like a really sunny day today, and very unlike June here in Ireland, but usually we get about our 2 weeks is in May, and that's all we get for summer, around 2 weeks in May, and then that's about it. But it's been a bit of a scorcher today, and thankfully, as I look out the window, the sun has set, and it's still nice and bright outside, but it's a lot cooler, and it is just, it's just
nice.
right. Perfect recording conditions.
You know, that's the thing I've not been to Ireland yet, but that's the thing when you live in a climate where you get rainy weather often, you just appreciate those sunny days so much. Now, our summer sounds like it's longer than yours, but July, August, September, the Pacific Northwest is, I think, the best place in the United States. It's just phenomenal here.
No, I love that. Yeah. Like, it's actually funny because like I had a conversation with somebody recently, and I think I think the temperature is due to go up to like nearly 30 degrees in the UK this weekend. And like, so 30 degrees, I think that's about maybe 80 Fahrenheit or something, 85 maybe. I'm not 100% sure. I might have to fact check that one, but quite hot for us anyway. But it's the sort of thing, if I was to go over to the States in that temperature, perfect. I would love it. It would be great. But it's a different type of just disgusting kind of, we're not used to this. I think maybe because we expect it when we go away, but in the UK, no, it's just, but yeah, like you say, we kind of do learn to appreciate these little things in small doses, I suppose, because like no matter what happens, you always see somebody complaining on social media about it being too hot or too cold or too this, then wishing for the opposite at each appropriate time.
Yeah, that's right. It can always be too something.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So yes, Jody, so let's get into your story. So you are a park ranger turned podcaster, and you produce podcasts and other things as well. Like, you know, you've helped people with careers as like an advisor, things like that. So take us back to the very beginning. So what got you into work as a park ranger, and then how did this lead into your career in podcasting?
Oh, I'm glad we started there because I just love that story because I loved being a park ranger. I actually was a financial analyst at a commercial bank. I measured interest rate risk, which is as exciting as it sounds. And then it what prompted the change was actually my granny passed away. And that just prompted me to say, I could be really good at my job, and who benefits? I want to do something I'd rather do.
Yeah.
So I went back to school and became a park ranger. And I did that for 8 years. I was a law enforcement park ranger. And being a park ranger is as wonderful as you think it would be, unless you don't like the outdoors. Then it's probably as terrible as you think it would be. But I personally just loved it. And when I left Parks, I went back to school to get an MBA. And during that time, I started to think I'm learning a lot of cool things here that I wish I could share in parks, but I don't want to go back and be a park ranger anymore. That led me to realize I could do a podcast and share things I'm learning, interview other people in parks. I recorded 6 episodes of a show called The Park Leader Show back in 2013, but I sat on them for months and thought, oh, they're just not any good. I can't release these. I finally got over myself, and in April of 2014, I finally released those episodes, and it just sent me on a wonderful journey it's been on the back of podcasting the whole time, because that's what started it. The Park Leader Show, which is still out there. That was my first show, but it's still going. That led to me having Lee Cockrell, who was the retired executive vice president of Walt Disney World. He was on the show so we could talk about what parks learn from Disney. And I found his book, reached out to him, and I thought, what are the chances the guy that ran Walt Disney World for a decade is going to come on a podcast to talk to park rangers? But I figured I would ask anyway. What I didn't know, his sister-in-law had been a park ranger for 30 years at that time. Wow. And he was like, I love park rangers. Let's do it. Well, that went so well. I had him back a second time. That went so well. We decided to do a podcast together. So at the end of 2014, we launched a show called Creating Disney Magic, which is, of all the shows I've done, that has been the most popular show. It's mainly on the back of Lee. He's was already a popular guy, and the show's great, which certainly helps. But I found when you work with someone who is high profile, like Lee Cockrell, people start to say, can you do for me what you do for him? Mm-hmm. That led to me doing other podcasts. Eventually, Lee and I we created online courses. We launched the Cockrell Academy, which is courses in leadership management, customer service. We started doing live events and workshops. And that also led to me working with other executives who have had a wonderful decades-long career at companies like Disney. And now they want to do what's next. Well, Lee and I built something out that was so good that's people started coming to me to help with what comes after their corporate career. So it's just I usually will bill myself as former park ranger who became the happiest podcaster on earth. Well, one, because it's a tie-in to Disney, and two, because it's kind of clever and people ask about it. But that's why I'm just delighted. I record a lot of podcasts. I get to work with people that had these just absolutely wonderful careers. And I may not be a park ranger anymore, but I still get out in parks as much as possible, especially when on a sunny day like today. So if I weren't talking to Andy, I would probably be outside.
But I can promise you it will all be worth it. And honestly, Jody, that's an incredible story. And like what I love about that is how everything just seemed to fall into place really from a point where you just said to yourself, I need to release these episodes. You know, you said you sat on them for a number of months. It's like, I need to release these. And then it just kind of, everything just kind of fell into place like that. And I think it really does go to show, if you're reaching out to anybody to do a podcast or collaboration in any form, the worst thing that can happen is you either get told no or you don't get a response. But why not just go for it? Because podcasting is such an amazing thing. It connects so many people across the world. And like, you know, look at yourself, you know, with a Disney executive, and look at what that brought to you. So no wonder people are reaching out to you. So you mentioned that, you know, you left being a park ranger to go back to school. Was this influenced in any way by the podcasting side of things, or was it just the sort of right time in your life to leave the role of a park ranger?
I'll answer on both accounts. No, it didn't have anything to do with the podcast. That came after I left and was almost done with getting an MBA. it just was right time, right family situation, right. Parks was going through budget cuts. I had a fairly high seniority without a lot of time. Like my position, my rank was kind of higher than the amount of time I had been around. And when there are budget cuts, it's people like that that get bumped to other
Mhm.
positions. And I just had a chance to take a job with a luxury home builder in the area, not an office job. They wouldn't want me on a job site swinging a hammer. That wouldn't go well. But it it just, the timing was right, and my kids were young, and the as being a park ranger is fabulous. One of the only downsides, anytime you want to be at a park, that's when I have to be at a park.
Mhm.
Meaning weekends, holidays, summers. So my kids were young enough, the transition was uncertain. And I just said, well, there's another offer out there. It will give me more family time. So I went for it. And I will admit, for a couple of years, I kept thinking, my goodness, did I make the right choice? Because I really, when you have a role that you wear a uniform in, you really do start to identify yourself by that uniform. So for a couple of years, if maybe longer, I even thought, did I make the right choice? Looking back now, oh my goodness, absolutely, I made the right choice. I'm so glad I did it. And I want to touch on one other thing that you said, that about just asking and going for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you with Lee Cockrell, it would have been really easy to say, "Oh, he's just going to say no
Yeah.
and not ask him." But
Absolutely.
what? Why not let people say no for themselves? Just ask. You just never know what will happen. And my goodness, I don't even consider asking all that bold, but you just never know what's going to happen by taking the bold moves. And Andy's right. The people have said no. People have ignored me. I've never had anyone make a comment about my mother or punch me in the face just for asking. So it's gone well.
Yeah, and long may that continue as well. Yeah, like, I do think that podcasters sometimes do get in their own heads about it, because somebody may seem high profile because you see them either based on the role that they do, or they may be on television or something like that, and it's like, oh no, what would they want to do this? They're too busy. It's just like, we don't know that. You don't know their schedule. You just, you see you see what everyone else sees, but that's only a small percentage of it. And like, that's what I think about like podcasting being what it is. It brings people together in such like an interesting way, in such a beautiful way, where people get to like sort of learn new things, share stories and experiences, like, and like the conversation that we're having right now, like that's just solely based on the fact that podcasting is like an incredible networking tool. And yeah, like it is just something that is incredible.
Yeah, it is. We wouldn't have met. Like, who would have thought someone in Ireland and someone way over in Washington State in the United States would end up talking? We wouldn't have met without podcasting.
Yeah, exactly. So being then a park ranger then in Washington State, what was that like? What's a sort of, what does the role entail? It's not, genuinely, it's not something we really have here in the UK and Ireland, because maybe it's to do with the scale of the parks. I don't really know like the ins and outs, but it's not something we really have here. So for my own curiosity and like the listeners who may also be unfamiliar as well, what's the sort of role consist of?
So one time I was traveling with another park ranger and we're in uniform. We had gone to a training and we're on the way back to our park. And we stopped at a gas station to get some snacks. And the girl working saw us in uniform and she said, "Are you police officers?" And the other ranger said, "No, we're park rangers." And the girl, unfamiliar, I'm always a little surprised, at least in the United States, when someone's not familiar with what park rangers do, but not everybody goes to parks. So she didn't know. So she said, "What do park rangers do?" And he gave an answer that at the time I thought, well, why are you being rude? Why'd you say that? He said, "We range." And I thought, what a jerk answer. Why'd you say that to her? But since that time, I thought, you know what? That is like the perfect answer. That's what a park ranger does. It's right in the job description. We range the park
Mm.
to make sure people are safe, to make sure people are having a good time, to protect the resources. I was a law enforcement ranger, so I I had a badge and a gun as you would, and I would have to enforce laws. That's not the funnest part of being a
No, of
ranger when
course.
you have to come down on someone, but there's a reason for it. So a park ranger's day is never the same twice, which is one of the great things about it. There may be times, especially as you go up in rank, you'll have to spend a day in the office doing paperwork and you supervise people. And believe it or not, perhaps the most one of the most fabulous park ranger jobs is entry level when you're just out there with the people. I used to love to ride a bike in the park instead of going around in a truck or by foot because people really connected with that to see a
Yeah.
park ranger on a bike because it's like, oh, they're just like me. I love to
Yeah.
ride a bike, and you come across as more friendly. Kids will start just following you on a bike just because if you ride through a campground, you'll have a parade of kids following you behind. But as a park ranger, there is such a wide range of what you do because it's during the summer, the busy seasons, you're supervising a lot of people. There's a lot of work that needs done, and you may not be the one to do it, but you are making sure the welcome station is checking in campers and other seasonal park aides are taking care of weeds and cleaning bathrooms and so forth. And then you keep an eye on the campground. You go out and meet people. In more ways than one, it's a people business.
Yeah.
That's what a park ranger does, is deal with people. Yes, we protect the resources, but more than that, we are connecting people to the resources. We're interpreting the resources to people. We're telling stories about what has happened here. It's just great. And no matter what you're interested in, you can focus in on that as a park ranger. So if you come to the United States and go to a park, to me, seeing a park ranger is iconic. Like when you finally get to see Mickey Mouse at Disney World, it's our hat. It doesn't have the Mickey ears on it, but it's just as identifiable as Mickey Mouse ears. In the United States, a park ranger is just a big piece of the park visitor experience.
Mm-hmm. So like the hats are like the sort of ones that really go all the way around, like
Yeah,
quite
that's
wide.
right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. That's that. I mean, that me knowing that is wholly a product of seeing that on TV. I won't lie, but like that's yeah. No, I mean, that makes sense, and I love that. Like that's like such a wholesome thing. Get like being there around people, and then sort of giving people that empathy, like like you said, like they see you riding on a bike, and they're like, oh yeah, they are just like especially being on the law enforcement side of things, where that could be incredibly easy to sort of get like a bad reputation for that, or how people feel like they're walking on eggshells around like any law enforcement, like, but just to be like, it's like, well, no, like you just behave yourself, adhere to the rules, and there's no trouble, and it's sort of that's like sort of where you sort of find the balance between personal and professional, which like in any job is important, but I suppose when you're around people all the time, you kind of have to sort of make them feel sort of like safe at the park as well, whilst you're keeping them safe, but them knowing that their safety's in your hands, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right. And that's a big piece of a ranger just being there, is their presence means safety, and a park ranger's presence means information, and there's a lot of things that the presence of a park ranger means. And luckily for us, almost everybody loves park rangers. That's not true for police officers, but almost everybody loves park rangers and is happy to see you.
That's good. That's good. That's what you want out of your role, especially when you're dealing with the thousands and thousands of people over the course of say a year. That's exactly what you want.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. The one situation, like if you pull someone over for speeding or something, they're not happy to see you. But usually if you're out hiking a trail or just walking through the campground, most people are delighted that you're there.
Yeah, of course, of course. So you mentioned earlier on with you starting your podcast with Lee Cockrell that you everything just kind of grown from there. People were reaching out to you, being like, "How do you do this? How have you know?" Which obviously has bared a lot of fruit for you. It's been obviously it's turned into your livelihood, which is incredible to see. So you've worked with a lot of people through that. Like you, if I read correctly, you've produced over 1,300 podcast episodes.
Oh, it's double that now.
Oh wow.
This year, earlier this year, I passed 2,600 episodes
Wow.
because it's fascinating. I never set out to be a podcast host.
Mhm.
Like I hosted a show and then I hosted another show on purpose. And then people just started saying, "Well, you host my show." And I thought, my goodness, people are offering to pay me to host their shows. Yeah, I'll do that. And over the years, I've hosted just a wide range of shows for real estate agents, for travel writing, for pharmacists, for sales people, for a book publisher. I mean, so just a wide range. And right now, I think I probably have 6 active shows,
Wow.
and I've just done hundreds of interviews and 2,600 episodes. It's been a lot of fun. Most of them weekly. Some of them have a different cadence than that. Might be slower. I've got one show that, except for the summer, I do it every day. That has been an interesting project. It's not one I would recommend. I can't say I enjoy doing a daily show, but there's a reason I keep going on that
Yeah.
one. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And the ones that have been around the longest, the Park Leader Show was my first. Creating Disney Magic, that's still there. The Jody Maberry Show, which is kind of fun. You name a show after yourself, you can talk about anything you want, really.
Incredible. Like, so when people approach you asking, can you host the podcast, do you get sort of, in a way, creative license to sort of talk about things, or do they basically give you like a script or be like, can you talk about this in these episodes? Like, do they sort of give you the idea and you just do the production side of it?
It depends. There's a wide range. So Creating Disney Magic, we're roughly, let's just say 550 episodes.
Wow.
Of those 550 episodes, I think Lee Cockrell has known what we're going to talk about before we do 3 or 4 times. That's his preference. He does not want to know the topic. He doesn't want to know what we're going to talk about. He just wants to start recording and then go, because he just feels like if we were do an episode that way, it will be the most honest, candid way I can do it. That's what he wants to do. I've done other shows where I've practically been given a script. This is what we want to talk about. I do another show. I'll give you I'll do some current shows, because then it kind of promotes the show. So I do one called World at Work, which is about HR and recruiting and things like that. I'm the host. I would say the star of the show is Tim Dick. And usually he says, based on the work that his company, Best Culture Solutions, does, he'll pick one of the things they do and say, this is what I want to talk about. And then from there, I just drive it and make him the star of the show. Like, it's just to show off what he knows. And I've just done so many episodes and I'm sure you could do this. Anybody could do this. I just have a lot more practice after 2,600 episodes. It's just me driving the conversation about whatever topic he wants to talk about. There's another show I started doing not too long ago called Shut the Back Door, which is about data security and healthcare. And they know the topics that they want to hit. It's usually me, another co-host, and then a guest. And they know where they want it to go. And it's just up to me to keep it going in that direction, make sure they get to talk about the points that they already know they want to talk about. So really it's a variety. When I start working on a show with someone, I just find what do they want to get out of it? What
Yeah.
are they most comfortable with? And there's been shows that I've done that started out more or less a script in the beginning. And by the couple years in, they had become so comfortable that it was way more casual. Here's our topic. And then you just go. And you had to go through it. I had to go through it. In the beginning, you're not sure what you're doing. You kind of want handrails to hold on to. But the more you do it, the easier it is to just make it impromptu and say, this is our topic. Let's just take the conversation from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it does just because I think it's because you develop your speaking skills generally when you're doing this, and when you know that you're being recorded, you want it to sort of come across as genuine and as natural as possible, but also without having to do too much editing as well. Because I mean, well, you say you host the Daily Show, like I can only imagine the sort of admin that goes into that. Like, and I do not envy that one bit because recording is you'll know this yourself. Recording is the easiest part of a podcast. It's the easiest and most fun part of a podcast. Editing is it's nice. It's okay. I don't mind it, but there is a lot more that goes into it, I think, than what sometimes people realize. But from everything you just said, like, it sounds like it instills a lot of confidence that people are looking to you, knowing that you're a well-established podcast host, and it's like, can you host our show? But if they're driving the conversation and you're there to help that along because of your speaking abilities and knowledge, and based around that, do you feel like you've learned a lot more about all these different like sectors and things just from having done these podcasts?
Oh, definitely. And I've been asked many times over the years, and this ties into your question. It'll just take me just a moment to get there. I've been asked many times over the years, what's your favorite show to work on? Well, an easy answer would be like the Park Leader Show or Creating Disney Magic, but I usually say Great Escape Radio, which was a show about travel writing. And it was one of my favorite. That ran, I think we did 174 episodes of that show. The reason I liked it so much, I didn't know anything about travel writing, and their stories fascinated me. So if you were to listen, I don't even think that show's available anymore. But if you were to listen to Great Escape Radio, my curiosity and my fascination with the guests was always genuine because they just fascinated me. It was something I didn't know anything about. When I was doing a show for real estate agents, that's, in my mind, that's still business.
Yeah.
Pharmacists, that's still business. I didn't know anything about real estate before the show. I didn't know anything about pharmacy before that show, but it's still business related. Where travel writing, yes, there's a business side to it, but I didn't know anything about travel writing, and it just was so much fun. So all the shows that I've got to work on, I get to learn a little bit more. But I think one of the reasons that it has worked so well, and when I say this, don't hear me try to distance myself from podcasters, but I usually don't say I'm a podcaster, even though I am. That's not how I approach it.
Yeah.
I'm a businessman who knows a lot about business, who happens to be really good at podcasting. So then that's different than being a podcaster who now has to figure things out, because I can have the conversations. I'm probably already well read on whatever we're going to talk about. And then we just turn it into a podcast. And I think that helps with some people that are executives looking to do a show, because it feels more conversational than radio show-ish.
Yeah.
Because if oh my goodness, I'm with a professional podcaster, maybe that's intimidating if I've never done it before. But if I'm just having a conversation with a fellow business person, well, I've done that for 30 years. So then they feel a little more comfortable. But yeah, I've learned a lot that I never would have waded into about just a wide variety of topics. And the show I just mentioned a little while ago, Shut the Back Door, data security and healthcare, I had no clue. Like no clue. I had never read or studied that topic. And I'll admit, some of our episodes have scared me. I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't know there were people that were that clever and sneaky out there.
Yeah, like I love sort of the way you distinguish between being a podcaster and a businessman, because I've never heard it talk like that before, and I find that incredibly interesting because it makes sense, because you produce podcasts just as much, or probably more maybe, than you actually are hosting of them. And from what I've seen on your website as well, like it goes a lot sort of deeper than that. And you mentioned that, you created courses online and things like that. So it does really go a lot deeper into podcasting. But like podcasting it's an incredibly like effective and powerful marketing tool, which I see that like sort of more businesses are getting into over recent years, rather than podcasts being sort of leisurely, conversational, and just, I don't want I'm not sort of saying they're more fun, but more like neither. A lot of them are becoming very business driven, because businesses are seeing that it is a powerful tool. It's a good market to sort of be in with whatever demographic may be. And obviously, as we're kind of shifting into more fully embedded into the digital age that we're in, like people want to just sort of listen to something rather than maybe watch the news or read the paper or anything like that. So like I completely understand what you're saying. So, and obviously when people approach you to produce an episode or produce their series, whatever it may be, does that sometimes also come without hosting duties? Like, do people just say, I have this idea, this, that, and the other, XYZ. Can you produce this for me? Can you give me the episodes? Can you give me the content? Does that happen as well?
That has happened, but I usually don't do it. I get the requests, but I usually don't do it. I have a great team in place for production, but I typically only use it for my clients.
Mm-hmm.
Like the podcast is a piece of something bigger. So I can say, we're going to do all this work together, and we can produce your podcast. So if I'm only producing, I quite often host, but if I'm only producing, it's usually because it's a piece of something bigger I'm working on with somebody. I rarely will take on a podcast production job that doesn't have other components with that client. So I have done it here and there, but I rarely do it.
Yeah. So sounds like you're well and truly comfortable in front of the camera, on the microphone, just talking to people and helping them grow their business while you're playing a big part of that.
Oh yeah, comfortable. I'm a middle child, so anything I can do to get someone to notice me. So it's podcasting is a great way for that. And I've also narrated and produced audiobooks, but every time it's always been because I've already got a relationship with someone. I'm not out there pitching, trying to get audiobook narrations or audiobook productions. It's usually just a piece of something bigger that I'm working on with someone else. But that's been interesting as well. I've narrated 2 of Lee Cockrell's books, and his son, Dan Cockrell, I narrated his book. And then Dan's wife, Lee's daughter-in-law, Valerie, she wrote a book, and I produced it. I didn't narrate it. I offered to narrate it, but she's from France. I tried to talk in a French accent, but she didn't think it was appropriate for a man with a fake French accent to narrate her book.
I mean, it could have worked. It could have worked. Can you do a French accent? I'm not asking you to, but can you generally?
No, not even close. But here's what I think. How many people would have got that book just to hear me struggle in a French accent trying to narrate it?
That is what you call marketing right there.
Yeah.
So obviously in your line of work as well, you have had a lot of featured articles, INC, Entrepreneur, Business Journals, to name a few. What can you tell us about how that came about? Like, and how did it feel getting that recognition for the work that you have done for your clients?
Well, so how it came about, depending on which it either could have been someone was writing an article and they featured me. There's been a couple that were articles about podcasting and they featured me, and then which is tremendous. Like again, back to middle child to get any sort of attention, delightful. I'll take it. So that's just wonderful. And others could be articles that I've written, that's really special too.
Mm-hmm.
To you and I are used to getting our spoken words produced in one way or another, but to have written words put out there in front of other people, that's pretty cool. I like that. That's perhaps something I would like to do more of when it comes, is more when the opportunity comes, and that's getting articles published, getting books published. I've helped a lot of other people do stuff like that, and not much for myself yet, which ties into the second part of your question. How does it feel getting recognition for the work you've done for other people? It's really cool that I make a really good sidekick, in the sense that I don't always need credit for what I did. If I write something or do something good for someone else and they get recognition for it, I'm just as satisfied to sit back and say, well, no one else may know, but I know I did that, and it brings me a lot of pleasure.
Yeah, especially because even if your name isn't on the cover or the article, whatever it may be, but it's a project you've worked on, you know that, and like just seeing that do well, that's a product of your work, it's a product of other people's work, and it's going somewhere. Like that must be fulfilling enough in itself.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's so fun to see other people succeed and get recognition because you helped them get there. I've mentioned before, partially joking, on how much I like attention. Even more though, I like seeing the people that I've helped get the recognition, and that's even better. I love that.
Yeah, of course. And to me, I think it's an absolutely fascinating business model that you have. Like, especially people are coming to you to produce the episodes, or produce their podcast, I should say, but actually be a part of it. Of like for even deeper than the production, like being a speaker on the podcast. And I'm assuming with that, did you manage the guest scheduling and all things in between, or was it always just you and a co-host for each of them, or what was the sort of format, or is the format, I should say, of the ones you have?
And it all depends, because I've done so many shows, the formats have been all over the place. There are times where I will handle guest scheduling. I will handle a lot of that, but the format that I think has worked really well, if we look at Creating Disney Magic, that's a format that I'm not saying that I invented it. But I didn't know of anyone else doing this when we started Creating Disney Magic, where it's called Creating Disney Magic with Lee Cockrell. But if you look at the cover, it'll say Creating Disney Magic with Lee Cockrell, hosted by Jody Maberry. And that's because from the very beginning, I understood we each had different roles on that show. Lee is the star and I'm the host. And that host and star format works really well when you've got someone like, all right, so Lee Cockrell's absolutely phenomenal. But if his show was just him doing a monologue, it wouldn't be as successful. I don't mind saying that. It's the host and star format that works so well, because Lee has so much. He was with Hilton, with Marriott, with Disney. He has so much in his head that if you just said, Lee, take this episode and talk about employee performance reviews, just to pick something random and narrow, Well, what he would tell you would be good, I'm certain. But what he tells you when he has a host prodding at him, getting him to talk more, asking deeper questions, what comes out is so much better. And so his role is to just say really good things. My role is to make sure I'm mindful of two sides. One is to make Lee look and sound brilliant. And I do that by asking the right questions, continually to reinforce what he says. My other role is to make sure that the listener gets something valuable out of it and is entertained. So that Lee's role is to be the star. My role is to be the host. And we both understand the role, and that's how we go about it. So that is one format that's worked really well. And I've done that with other shows. But then there are other that are interview based. And I've got a system that I've used for a long time with interviewing, because when I started interviewing, I didn't know where to begin. I'm going deeper than what you asked on this part.
Please do. That's what I love about this. Like the tangents, going deep into these things, that is honestly embodies the spirit. So please do.
Good. So what I would do is if I had a guest. So the first time I interviewed Lee Cockrell, we'll take that. I would take my yellow legal pad and I would go through and watch videos, read books, read articles, look at social media, and just write down every question that comes to mind. And then when I'm done with that, let's say I have 2 or 3 pages of questions, I would go back and put the questions in an order. Because if you've come up with questions based on research, to some degree, you know what the answer might be. Yeah. So then you take your list of questions and you put them in an order that as they're answered, it tells a story where there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and overcoming challenges and all of that. And so that's how I've approached interviews. But the other part of it is, if you are dead set on sticking to your questions, it's likely not going to turn out as good as it could have.
Absolutely.
So I think there's a difference of showing up with prepared questions and sticking to that. What I like to do is show up prepared with questions, meaning I've done my homework, I've got the questions, I'm prepared with my questions. I may only end up asking 1 or 2 of them.
Oh, yeah.
So that's how I approach the interview format versus the host and star format.
You know, your approach there is pretty much exactly how my journey personally for this podcast has gone as well. And it's honestly, it's the most reassuring thing, because I think maybe the first 20 episodes or something that I did of this, I was writing down the questions all in prose, have them on like a note on my screen, and I was going off that. Now, I did structure them in the same way as well, trying to make it like flow, talk about like certain things that could flow into other things, and then kind of have it round off in like an appropriate way. But what I also found was like my love of tangents, my love of everything, like, you know, really going deep into stories. And that almost, even though that was the best part, almost got in the way of the format that I had created, because I ended up having like 2-hour episodes of just interviews, which was great. But looking back to compared to now, I feel like you can really sort of just get so much more from a sort of doing enough research and just having some talking points and just really kind of diving deep into just a few points, like and that's kind of the evolution that I took as well personally. Like now I'll do my research on a person, I will have 5-6 bullet points of things to talk about, and it's exactly the same thing. If we get through them all, we get through them all. If we don't, you just kind of like it gives you this kind of innate ability to sort of read the room while you're sort of doing it, and be like, okay, this would be a good point to, you know, you keep an eye, you just sort of double check the time, and this is like, okay, yeah, it's kind of a way to like round off. And it's but yeah, I honestly, the fact that the approach that's resonated with me a lot, and I'm very glad to hear that.
Yeah. Well, it's great. And I'm certain you've noticed this. When you have prepared questions and you're determined to stick to them, no matter what your guest talks about, you wrestle it back to your questions. But when you're prepared with questions and you don't, and let me say this as well. That's why it's important to do research and have questions, because, or bullet points, it allows you to listen. If you don't have any questions, if you haven't done any research, while your guest talks, you start thinking of what should I ask next?
Yeah.
But if you've done your research and or are prepared with questions, you don't have to worry about that because you've got it in front of you and you can just listen. And when you're listening, your guest may say something where you say, I've got to find out more about that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's like one of my favorite things to do is, and I think it's more of a freeing thing when you're interviewing somebody. It's like so freeing to just have the things that you want to talk about, but and if you're kind of, let's say in your head you're segmenting it between points, but they mention something and you're like, you say you really want to hear about it, you're like, okay, well, let's touch back on this point here, and it just kind of breaks it down. And I don't know if it's just coincidence, but you've probably found this yourself, but sometimes, let's say you have your points or your questions all in order because it makes sense. Sometimes these things do just lead on to the next thing naturally as well. And like, I like sort of the format as well that you have with Creating Disney Magic, because the conversational aspect of it, especially when you say that, you know, Lee doesn't want to know what you want to talk about before the episode, you just go in and be like, this is what we're talking about today, and it's like, yes, brilliant, let's do it. Like, I think I think that sort of format, it does apply to the whole let's talk about this, and you will undoubtedly hear something that Lee says and be like, okay, let's dig deeper into this. And like, I'm sure that's why the show's worked for as long as it has, of course.
Yeah, it's a great show, and that's exactly why I have kind of a cadence that I try to follow with that show. So, because quite often Lee will talk big because he ran Walt Disney World, so he thinks big. So he'll often give big answers, and then I always, towards the end, if you listen to a show, you'll catch it. Towards the end, I'll always like even bring it down to mid-management or lower or early in your career and get his advice. So I usually, whatever the topic is, I let Lee go. I mean, that's the point of it. Let Lee go, say his thing, and then I'll hit it from a couple different aspects. So we cover that, whatever it is, pretty thoroughly, all within 15 minutes. We keep that show fairly short.
Yeah.
So it's worked out really well.
Yeah, like that's, and I think sort of having a specific time frame that you want to do an episode in and just keep it to that is an important tool as well. Like I said before, like my first sort of half of episodes that I've done, the timings went between 45 minutes to 2 hours plus, and it's sort of, it seems okay at the time, but then you look back and you think, you know, like I think since joining Podmatch, actually, I've been consistently hitting that 50 minutes to an hour, 45 minutes to an hour or something, and that's like this sweet spot. The amount, I feel like I've probably gotten more invigorating stories from people, been had like sort of more rich conversations, and that is not me sort of talking down on the previous episodes I've done. Everyone I've spoke to has like had an amazing story to tell, but I think it goes back to what we said. Like, it comes with the kind of format change whenever you do more research and you just sort of, conversation just flows a bit better. And like, it goes to show that like podcasting is it's a learning tool. And I'm sure with everything that you've done on all of your episodes, like all your clients have come to you and asked you to be a part of their podcast and produce it. You've learned a lot, and I'm sure like your clients have learned a lot as well.
Yeah, it goes. That is my favorite thing about podcasting is even if nobody listens, I don't like people to get hung up on the numbers anyway. But even if nobody listens, just your mother, there is something special that happens when you have to show up every week with something to say
Yeah.
or show up every week and have a sharp conversation. You learn what you believe in, you learn how to talk about it, you learn how to be interested if you have an interview format show, because being interested as a podcaster is way more important than being interesting.
Yeah.
And,
100%.
and you just learn. And the other thing that we should also mention, since we're talking podcast, I've said it and will continue to say the way I do shows, it's a conversation and not a radio show.
Yep.
Even still, it's a performance. You always have to understand you're on stage, you're performing, because the Jody Maberry that is on your show talking to you right now is me, yes, of course, but it's kind of me times two, because
Yeah.
the regular Jody Maberry, I'd be sitting on the couch petting my dog. And how interesting is that? So you amplified performing version of Jody Maberry.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and again, I couldn't agree more, because like the Andy games that you're talking to right now, it is me, it is Andy, but a few little dials sort of tweaked here and there. And that's exactly what it is, because, you know, it's a performance. You're putting on a production. People want to listen to it, and like people will listen to it through their radio as if it's a radio show. It's what will replace radio for people. And in some ways, there needs to be that kind of sound of like, one, maybe professionalism, two, but also at the same time sounding natural and just being entertaining and being listenable, I think, is really kind of the key thing as well, which it does actually bring me quite nicely onto another point I wanted to sort of ask you, because I seen a statistic on your website, but the average podcast only lasts 7 episodes. And I've seen very similar statistics before, like not many people get past maybe episode 3 or 7, and it's like a high percentage. Like I think the percentage was in the 90s or something of people who don't really make it even into double digits of podcasting. So what is it that you do to ensure that your clients' podcasts really do go that distance, go like as long as they possibly can, organically, naturally, and always kind of hitting their selling point?
Well, first, this is a bit of self promotion.
No, please.
That if a client, if a client is working with me as their host, I'm a force when it comes to this, and they will make it the distance if I have to drag them with me. So if they've hired me to host their show, they've got nothing to worry about. We are not going to run out of things to talk about, and usually the people that I work with are at the level of, I want to record my episode and then I don't want to think about it again. Meaning so let's use Lee Cockrell as an example. And I mean this with complete respect, as it should be. If we're doing a 15-minute episode, he puts 15 minutes into it and he pours himself in for 15 minutes, but he doesn't want to worry about it again.
Yeah.
As it should be. That's what he wants. And so there's one. If you're working with me, I give you no choice but to go so far. Like we may have a predetermined stopping point for, I can't name a name yet, but there's someone I'm working with on a show coming up that will probably come out next year. And we're going to do a 10 episode run of a show of a particular thing. Okay. So that's 10 episodes. We're intending to stop at 10. That's a little different than just fading out.
Yeah.
Because if you mean to stop at 10 episodes and that's all you ever do, you will still promote those episodes. You will still tell people to listen. But if you started a show and you faded out at episode 6, you're probably not going to point people towards the podcast. You couldn't keep going.
Yeah.
So that's what we had another show that when we launched it, the whole intent was to go 100 episodes and end it. That one was called If Disney Ran Your Life. And Jeff Knoll, the guy I did it with, it was host and star format, but he drove what the topics were, because in Disney fashion, he had it storyboarded out on what it would be. 9 different seasons, 100 episodes, and he had it storyboarded out. So they're being deliberate like that helps. Now, if you're doing a show on your own, how do you get past? So I think I can give a better answer to that, because the answer to how do I help my clients? Well, it's because of me. I encourage them, push them, keep them going. But let's say you're doing a show on your own. How do you get past the 10 mark? Because I think if you get to show 11, it's very likely you'll get to show 50.
Yeah.
So how do you get to show 11? On my website, I realized what the problem was, and I created a guide called the Podcast Magic Guide. You can get it for free on my website, and it is set up to address the issues that I know people have in getting to episode 11. So what it helps you walk through and plan out those first 10 episodes, so you know exactly what they're going to be. Because when you start a show, enthusiasm will take you through 5 or 6 episodes. And then what happens? Some people don't mind editing, but I will say overall editing is a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Then on top of that, people have, if you've ever saw Field of Dreams, there's that voice that says, if you build it, he will come. Well, a lot of podcasters, whether they admit it or not, have it in their head, if I record it, he will listen. Well, it's just not true. It takes quite a while to build up listeners. And then the third thing is, you find out after a couple of months, it is difficult to come up with content every single week.
Yeah.
So you combine those 3 things, and I think that's why people quit. That's why they fade out. So the Podcast Magic Guide that I created, that you can get for free, jodymaberry.com, that just helps you get through those first 10 episodes.
It is quite an interesting thing, that statistic, because, and the way you put it there actually really makes a lot of sense, because you have like different formats of podcasts. You have content driven podcasts, like you mentioned, where this is the topic for the day or whatever it may be. And then obviously you have interview style podcasts, which are going to be different, same format, but it's going to be something different. And I think they're easier to do. And like, this is episode 45 right now, or sorry, episode 46 right now, I should say. And, like every episode's been different, and there's less thought that goes into it. You do your research and you make your notes, but you never struggle for ideas for content or anything like that. The content-based ones, like I can tell you from first-hand experience as well. Like a friend of mine and myself, we hosted a podcast last year, very content-based, and I like wrote all the content and everything. I was just similar idea, bullet points, and we just kind of talked around it. But it got to the point, we did 3 structured episodes, which were pretty good, in my humble, honest, and non-biased opinion. And we got to episode 4, and we just decided we didn't want to write any content for it, so we just had a conversation and just caught up. It had been a few weeks, about a month or so since we'd spoke, so we just kind of had a catch up. And it was nice, but it didn't really fit in. And then, like, just due to circumstance, it kind of fizzled out. And another interesting point that you raised is you're working on this project. I know you say you can't talk about it, but that it's just a 10 episode stint. Now, I think that is something that, like, maybe this could be like an ignorance thing, but you don't see too much with podcasts where they're only meant to go for a certain length of time. I do feel like most do just fizzle out, like you say. Like, most do just kind of, people either kind of get bored of it, or they just sort of struggle for content, or maybe it's a confidence issue. It could very well be one of a million different things. And that's an interesting concept, that's like, we're doing X number of episodes, and that's it. Like it's a proper, just a series. And I think that's sort of, I think it's a smart move to do sometimes, depending on what you got. If you know that there is a finite amount of content that you can put out on a certain topic, just have it like that and market it and advertise it just like that, rather so then that way whenever you have listeners coming in, like they know, like it's Jody Maberry, it's, you know, a very, very well esteemed podcast host, producer. They know what to expect. Like 10 episodes here, rather than just, oh, what happened to that show? Like that's I know I've just rambled on there for a couple of minutes, but like it's just such a fascinating concept.
Well, and you mentioned the important parts of why that works is that if your show fades, you're just not going to tell people about it. And if you admit for 10, you'll keep promoting it. And if you know you're only going to do 10 or 12 or whatever it is, then that's your best stuff. You put what you need to in those 10 episodes, and then that's it. And you then have the benefit of people finding that show, finding out about you, finding what you're an expert in, and never wondering, oh, what happened to that show? Now, eventually, people may look at the dates and say, oh, he hasn't produced a show in a while. That's about the only downside is to, well, people may eventually, based on the date, think it's stale, but otherwise, it's a much better approach than just fading away.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's another thing as well. When you mention the dates, like, how much do you think of the importance of when you look at the dates on like whatever platform it may be, seeing like the same day, like every single episode, like say Sunday, this date, Sunday, that date, Sunday, that, do you think that consistency carries a lot of weight in terms of getting the listeners or retaining the listeners?
It matters in the sense of when you have fans of your show and you've promised them a weekly episode, if you don't fulfill that, it matters.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does it matter that your episode comes out every Sunday and people are going to see that? Probably not. People don't pay attention to that sort of stuff. I think it's just a matter of fulfilling your promise to your regular listeners. And there are times when people will find your show, and if they see it's not, oh, he hasn't done an episode in a month, perhaps they don't listen. Or, gosh, he only did 10 episodes and it was a year ago. Maybe they don't check it out. But on balance, I think people don't pay attention to those details.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just my thought. But it is interesting. An active show, according to the people that keep track of the statistics, I've seen that an active show has to have more than 10 episodes because statistically, if you don't have 10 out, you're not going to make it to 10. So they don't count shows that are less than 10 episodes, and it has to have at least one episode in the last 30 days. Now, according to the people that measure the statistics, which if I knew I was going to talk about that, I would have looked up who that was. But that's what constitutes an active show. More than 10 episodes, one episode in the last 30 days.
Yeah, it's like you look at that and it's like that is a fairly small criteria, and it's like it's amazing to me how people just sometimes cannot even break into that double digits. Like I mean, because I do the topic of consistency here does come up quite a lot, because for me, I find it's like a little bit of a debate as to whether how important is consistency. But see, when you break it down like that, like it's just, that's sort of just stay active, really. Just stay active. You will be on the radar. Just that's I quite like that. It's actually quite reassuring, like as a podcaster, and I hope it is for any podcasters listening as well. Just stay active.
Yeah, that's right. I miss episodes. I tell when people ask, how often should I do a show? I say ideally weekly.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you know you can't keep that up, do what works. Do whatever schedule you can maintain. And I miss episodes sometimes. The Jody Maberry show, I'll miss a week here and there. I don't, not on purpose, but if I have other clients' shows I have to fulfill, they come first. So sometimes I'll miss mine. The Park Leader show, I make sure there's a show every week all summer long when parks are busy to give rangers some encouragement and things to listen to. But during the winter, I don't mind taking a week off, 2 weeks off here and there. It you just do what you've got to do. And sometimes, yes, consistency is important, but adhering to a schedule that you made up yourself can also sink a show. Like if you won't give yourself the forgiveness to miss an episode when you need to miss an episode, it will end up sinking your show.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, honestly, and if that doesn't instill confidence in anybody else listening today, then I don't know what will.
Well, I'll give you one more statistic. And again, if I knew we were going to talk about it, I would have had it in front of me. So these numbers are made up. Don't hold me to them. Don't hold Andy to them. Consider them made up. But it's the spirit of what I'm going to say that is accurate. So let's say Spotify says there are 4 million shows, give or take. Spotify reports a higher number than Apple, if I'm right. But let's say there's 4 million shows on Spotify. If you only take those two parameters that we talked about earlier, at least 10 episodes and one episode in the last 30 days, the number of shows in Spotify drops from 4 million to adding the active criteria to like 350,000.
Whoa.
It is crazy. So people will say the podcast space is really crowded. Yeah, maybe. But if you count active shows, there's not a lot of competition. And then take what your show is about. There's like 12 different categories in Apple Podcasts. If you just divide 350,000 shows into 12 categories, there's not nearly as much competition as you think there is.
That is fascinating, because that is something that does come up a lot, that podcasting is crowded. Like there's the whole stereotype, oh, everyone has a podcast these days. But when you break it down like that, that is what has been one of the very fascinating things about chatting to you today, is just the insights into that, and just these like simple little pieces of information that just break it down so easily and really just make you think, can't believe I never thought of that. Like that's amazing. So yeah, for any podcasters listening, like I say, just like I said before, just stay active, keep doing it. You're doing great, and the competition isn't as much as you think.
Yeah, that's right. You should be your competition anyway. You should be competing with yourself. That's how you get better.
That's it. Yeah.
And so I think that is a great summary of our whole conversation. If you've got a podcast, just stay active. Just keep showing up.
Yes, absolutely. And yes, and Jody, it has been a pleasure having you on Behind the Camera with Andy Games. Thank you so much for your time. It has been incredibly insightful. I have certainly learned a lot. I hope everybody listening has learned a lot. I know you touched upon it before, but if you would like to sort of promote your website or your podcast or anything else that you would like to direct the listeners to, the floor is yours.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. JodyMaberry.com is the home of everything on the web for me. You'll find all the podcasts I host there. You will find a way to contact me, and you will find the Podcast Magic Guide, that if you're interested in having a podcast or you have one and you just want to see what I have to say about it, then you'll find that on JodyMaberry.com too. It's right there on the front page. So, and I welcome any questions. Just contact me, and I'm happy to talk if you heard anything you want to ask more about. Yeah. So thank you for the opportunity for the little bit of self-promotion, Andy.
No, of course, Jody, absolutely. And I would implore everybody listening to definitely check out Jody's website. Once again, Jody, thank you so much for your time. Been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you, Andy. This was great.
And there you have it. That brings us to the end of episode 46 of Behind the Camera with Andy Games. A huge thank you to Jody for sharing his insights into life as a park ranger and general insights into podcasting. I know for certain, as an independent podcaster, there were so many things I was able to take from our chat that really did give me a lot of reassurance about what I do. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to follow, leave a review, or share it with someone who'd simply appreciate these stories. Your support means the world. Until next time, take care, stay creative, and I'll see you soon. But until then, peace.